All right, let's take a live look at the White House here in Washington. In order to get into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they needed us, didn't they? Black voters, and we didn't let him down. We resurrected his campaign first, and then we put him into office. To get us, candidate Biden made a lot of promises, and now it's a year later, and the question is, has he delivered? Here with us is political strategist, once again, Ameshia Cross. Good morning to you, Ameshia. And so that's the rub. We did all of this. Okay, we bought the materials. We put up the foundation. We constructed this house. We threaded a needle to get you in here and get rid of what some would say is a madman who's under investigation today. What thank you have we gotten? Maybe you could outline that first.
Thanks for that question, Sharon. I think that we have to level set for a moment. There are some wins that Black people have gotten out of this administration, including increasing support for HBCUs. We've seen higher levels of federal judges and judges that have been appointed that are particularly Black women than we've ever seen in any administration in the past. We've seen the aforementioned child tax credits that serve to provide living costs for a lot of families, particularly those run by single moms across this country. A big up to African-American women. And we've seen time and time again pushes in our community that have been helpful, specifically as it related to COVID-19 relief and housing supports and housing assistance. Granted, I think that it was very important that President Biden called out in his press conference yesterday that some of those supports have quite frankly been stalled at the state level. The monies were given, yet states and local governments have not done their part in ensuring that a lot of them were handed out. But I do think that it's very important that we also hold this president accountable for many of the things that he actually promised on the campaign trail that we have yet to see.
Yeah, I mean, he was asked about overpromising. He said he didn't feel like he overpromised. But what do you think is the biggest mistake that he made in his first year in office when it comes to Black people? Was it trying to reach out to Republicans that didn't want to help him out? Was it not getting his Democratic colleagues and Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema on board enough time? Was it not getting some legislation done when it came to Justice and Police and Act or voting rights? What was the biggest mistake, in your opinion, that he made in his first year in office?
Underestimating his Republican colleagues. I think that at the end of the day, this is a president who was known for being able to reach across the aisle, who was known to be able to effectively move those negotiations forward. This was a president who was, in many cases, the orchestrator in chief when it came to the ACA and ensuring that there were Republican votes on that as well, even though there was a heightened level of obstruction during the Obama administration. I think that this is a president who was used to working with the right so much that he didn't really understand or take into consideration the cost of a right-wing movement that was designed to obstruct and not move forward any of his pieces of legislation, up to and including the coronavirus relief that many of them go around bragging about in their districts that not a single one of them voted to support. I definitely think that it was that, in addition to not being able to corral the Democrats, the Democrats, both the progressives as well as the more moderates. It's fine to do infighting. Infighting happens in all political parties. We're not as much of a big tent as people would like to believe that we are. But being able to do that behind closed doors is one thing. Doing it and having it play out on center stage is something different. I think that really hurt him as well.
Can we talk, though, Ameshia, about communication? Because it's one thing to not be able to please everybody in infighting. But if your neighbor has to call you and say your kid's down the street fighting, and you don't have that communication level with your own family. You know, I heard after his marathon session, we'll call it, members of the Democratic Party reacting, some anonymously saying, well, I was pleased to hear this, and it was good to hear this. I was surprised to hear it. Is there not a line of communication where the administration, it's one thing to give you some bad news, okay? Maybe you can absorb it. But if you hear it from somebody else or hear it at the last minute, that's an extra blow, no?
It absolutely is. And I will tell you, as someone who's worked in communications for a very long time, including for a former president, at the end of the day, no communications advisor will tell you that it is smart to go almost 2 hours at a press conference, ever. And it's because you can easily, even the best communicators can easily walk themselves into a trick bag. I think that we saw some of those things happen last night. One of the things that really popped up and bubbled up out of this was the president's comments about Russia invading the Ukraine. Obviously, that is not a domestic issue, but it's one that does have a long-term policy implication, specifically to our relationships with our European allies. And in real time, we saw the State Department try to basically clean up the president's messaging right there. With that being said, I think that another fumble that this president had was basically the last question that was asked. It was one about student loans and reducing debt, and specifically that $10,000 of debt that he promised that would be relieved on the campaign trail. Honestly, the president didn't answer that question at all. He quickly moved on to something entirely different and totally skipped that over. To think that millennials and others who hold student debt didn't notice that, I think would be a failure of this president.
So what do you expect out of this president moving forward? Not just going into the midterm, but the rest of his administration, the rest of his time in office, especially when it comes to the GOP?
He's going to play hardball. I think that he came to the conclusion yesterday, and I'm glad that he did it publicly, that this is a Republican-led obstruction campaign that is never ending, that is unrelenting, that does not stand for anything, that does not need to stand for anything because they can still win from their supporters. But the Democratic strategy has to change. Reaching across the aisle is one thing. His hand has been slapped every time he's tried to do it. I think now it's time for him to go full throttle, and we're going to see that from this president. We're going to see more executive orders. We're going to see him calling out the Republicans. We're going to see a better communication strategy, because I think he realizes now that, looking at the polling, even though he says it doesn't matter, he knows that it does. He also knows that the Black community and Black America is largely questioning his leadership right now, and that is the core base of the Democratic Party, not only for the presidency, but also as these midterms roll around.
Yeah, we're out of time, but I also wonder, does he need more surrogates? You know, Whip Clyburn is a powerful surrogate for him, but there may not be others who are going to go as hard for him within the party. But your insight, so valuable. Ameshia Cross, thanks so much for starting your day with us. We appreciate you. We'll be watching. Advise him to keep it shorter next time, Ameshia, if you can get a call into the White House. 10 minutes or less. 10 minutes or less. We can't.